every single one of my students didn't really know what market to pick. I mean, they had one that they were going off of, but they didn't know why. And so then what I ended up having to put together was, all right, let's put together, how do we determine what market to invest in? And like I always tell people, it's like, if you're in a market, it doesn't matter where you're in a town, anywhere, and you're walking down the street and you see an apartment building, somebody invested in that market building. Is it the best investment market? Probably not. Maybe not. I don't know, but somebody is probably making money in that market. And so money can be made anywhere, but then what you're trying to do, I guess, is mitigate your risks as much as possible with your market analysis. Welcome to the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast, where precision meets performance in commercial real estate. I'm your host, Jason Williams, and every week we deep dive into the strategies and systems and stories behind rock solid underwriting. Whether you're a seasoned analyst, an up-and-coming investor, or a commercial real estate professional looking to sharpen your edge, this show is your front row seat to expert insights, emerging trends, and real-world underwriting tactics that stand the test of time and scrutiny. From market assumptions to debt structuring, cap rates to cash flow, we're cutting through the noise and getting to the numbers that matter. So sharpen your pencils and fire up those models. Let's get to work. This is Ironclad Underwriting. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Williams, and I got my co-host, business partner and friend, Frank Patalano. How are you doing, Frank?
Good, sir.
So I have almost every single one of my students, and I really didn't want to really touch on this, but it seemed more critical than ever, is they don't know what markets to invest in. And so when I put my program together, I always envisioned somebody has a deal or they're investing in a market already, and then they just want to like fine tune their underwriting skills in that specific market they chose. But every single one of my students didn't really know what market to pick. I mean, they had one that they were going off of, but they didn't know why. And so then what I ended up having to put together was, all right, let's put together, how do we determine what market to invest in? Now, everybody has different investing criteria, different reasons for investing. And so this isn't just like something that covers everything, but it's at least a good idea on what to look for when you're investing in a market. But it's not like a end all be all, these are the rules you have to abide by. And if they don't fall within these guidelines, you can't invest there. So, and like I always tell people, it's like, if you're in a market, it doesn't matter where you're in a town, anywhere, and you're walking down the street and you see an apartment building, somebody invested in that market building. Is it the best investment market? Probably not. Maybe not. I don't know. But somebody is probably making money in that market. And so money can be made anywhere. But then what you're trying to do, I guess, is mitigate your risks as much as possible with your market analysis. What do you say to that?
So I do a lot of coaching, and many times they're way too widespread on what kind of market they want to invest in. And just like all of us, we need to focus a little bit. So everybody has certain determining factors on what they like and what they don't like, what they care about when they're going to invest, and what they really don't care about. So, I mean, whether you're investing from Alaska or Arizona or Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, I mean, there's reasons why people invest, and it's not just about the dollars.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main thing we should talk about is how do you pick a market, or how do I pick a market? Because I'm invested in 10 different markets right now. Now, mine are a little different. The reason why I'm invested in 10 markets because I'm invested with 7 or 8 different partnership groups, and they have their own reasons why they like certain markets, and I just join the group. But if I'm looking for myself, there's definitely reasons why I would invest in certain markets. I think that's the best thing to talk about today, right?
Yeah, and I want to talk about how this episode is different than the episode we had a few weeks ago. I don't even know how many weeks ago, where we talked about one red flag that I have is people wanting to invest all over the place. South Carolina, North Carolina, Ohio, Texas, Houston, DFW, Abilene, Amarillo, whatever. And what I want to and that episode is like, no, you need to concentrate on a single market, learn everything you can before moving on. Well, now this episode is more or less what should you be learning in that market you're investing in, each one you're moving forward with, right?
Okay. Well, I was thinking that this was more picking a market and determining why would I want to invest in that market. It's like almost a step before that one, where it's like if I could invest anywhere in the country, where would I invest and why? How do I pick those markets I want to invest in?
Well, I think these my idea and your idea is the same,
Okay.
because if you pick like 20 markets,
Yeah, yeah, no,
you're
no,
you're going to
no.
go through the step for all 20 of them, and it gets overwhelming. Versus if you pick one town, say you pick Cincinnati, you can go through these numbers. But if you're doing this for 20 different ones, you can't handle it, because I
Okay.
mean it's a big overtake. And that's why I say concentrate on a single market first and then expand once you know everything. But I think we're on the same wavelength.
That's cool.
So,
So what's one of the biggest things that when we think about how we pick a market? What's a good one?
so well, for multifamily, I think we should probably talk about what a market cycle is first, and then
Okay.
you
Yeah, I
can
like it.
try to determine where your market falls into the market cycle. So, I mean, it seemed like what 5 years ago, every single multifamily market was like in an expansion market. Everyone was growing. You couldn't throw something at a wall without making money at it. Now we I think ended up the say the first one is expansion. So you have all these markets that are like building a whole bunch of units. Um, they have units for people to move into, but then after a while, you build too many, and now you have a hyper supply. And so it's like once you're in the hyper supply, it's like, well, you can't demand the same rents that you were before because the demand is not there. That's the whole economic supply and demand curve. And then once you're in the hyper supply, then you start going backwards. It's like, oh crap, now we have to start reducing rents just to get people to come in. And the people down the street are 150 bucks cheaper than we are. So how much further do we have to go down just to get people to come in? And then after a while, um, people start moving back, and then it starts to recover again, and then it starts the whole cycle over into the expansion, and then you go into the hyper supply recession, and it's like there's no real steady state in it. I mean, ideally you would like a steady state, but if there's a steady state, that means your growth and your supply and demand curve are like climbing at the same time, and we know that doesn't happen. What do you think?
So there's a book that I read years ago. I think it's called Emerging Market Cycles by Dave Lindahl, and it talks about kind of like what you're saying right here and how, real estate is cyclical in some ways. So if there's a high demand and a low supply, rents go up. If rents go up enough, people start building. Okay, once people start building, then if they overbuild, then you start to have some issues where supply is too high compared to demand. And that could
Yep.
happen not just because of the supply side, it could also happen with the demand side. If at one point, if you have a bunch of new businesses that are moving in and a bunch of great jobs, that's going to cause more people to go there. Eventually, as those businesses either move on, some of them close, stuff like that, it could easily affect pricing and building.
Yeah. So now we need to jump into why these markets are doing what we do and what data we look into to see which part of the cycle we're in or the market you're looking at is in. And so one big thing you want to look at is one population. Is the population of your market growing, staying steady, or dropping? Um, if your population is growing, more people are coming there. That means more housing needs to be built. Is there enough um, inventory of units for people to move into? And what drives the population is job growth. People move to certain areas for jobs. It's not just like people just have more babies and they don't move on. No, people are moving to a specific location for a job or for something that draws them there. So, um, so you want to look at population. And one good resource for that is just Google.com. You type in the MSA or the city you want to invest in. The MSA is the Metropolitan Statistical Area. You type in population, hit enter, and usually you can see population from the year 2000 onward, and nice, pretty graph on Google. So you can look at it that way and you can see, hey, this population has been growing. This is pretty steady or this is flat. And that should give a good indication of one, if it's a good market to invest in. You have anything to say on that?
I'm just thinking that I've definitely invested in places that don't have high job growth and don't have high population growth. I think it's harder to make money, but that doesn't mean it's impossible to make money.
Right.
So
And like I said
sometimes your cap
earlier,
rate has to be different, stuff like
like,
that.
like I said earlier, money can be made pretty much in any market.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're not gonna. These aren't hard and fast rules you have to abide by. I mean, if they were hard and fast rules to say, well, you need to hit a population growth of 10% over the last 5 years or something like that, it's like, no, you just want to. Right now, we're just looking at the trends.
Yeah. This isn't like stocks where if they miss their earnings report number, that the stock prices drop in the next 5 minutes after that.
Yeah,
This is, real estate's very much a long-term game. Plus, you have differentiation of properties. You can have two single families next to each other that look the same on the outside and can have vastly different values, especially for an investor, based on how you're renting it, what you've done to redo the kitchen, stuff like that. So real estate's definitely a little different.
yeah. Um, and what drives the population is, like I said, job growth earlier. And so you want to see what the major employers are in a town. Is a new employer coming to town? Right now, we're in the fall of 2025. There's a lot of businesses leaving California and New York. They're coming to Texas. They're coming to Oklahoma, Arizona. They're coming to all these more tax friendly states. And I'm talking people like Amazon, Tesla, SpaceX. All of those are moving to Texas, um, and they're also huge employers. You have a Amazon distribution center. You're employing a few hundred people, and that's just like the primary part. When those employers move to a town, other smaller employers are coming to that town too. Ones who work with it, maybe some trucking people who work on the trucks for the distribution. They set up shop next to Amazon so that they can work on their vehicles whenever they need servicing or something like. So I mean, there's all those secondary employers as well who are moving into town. So you want to look at who the major players are, major employers, and see who they are, and then consider like the secondary. Like I said, um, one thing though I would avoid are like the one trick pony towns. You know any towns like that? Any
I
examples of that?
do, a few too many. I had a property. I had two properties up in way up in Berlin, New Hampshire. Beautiful town. Oh, actually, I think it might be a city, but it's a small city. Years ago, they had a massive paper mill, and that paper mill is long gone. And there's a lot of poverty in the area. We bought the properties cheap, um, but at the same point, rents were super low. I mean, it's 4 hours from my house. It's 3 hours or 2:45 from Boston, and it's just too far for the average person to go to work in Boston as of right now. But like I said, it's up near the Canadian border. We have another property in West Virginia. Similar issue. They don't have a lot of jobs in the area. Lucky for us, they have an FBI office nearby, so we do have some people that work there. But this is it's hard to have luxury housing in a place where there's not a need for high-end apartments.
Yeah. So with the one trick ponies, you have one major industry that is employing maybe 50 to maybe, I don't know, 80% of the people in the town. But if that industry goes under, they get bought out, they go out of business, they move to a more tax friendly state, then all of those people are now without a job.
Yeah, and we talk about when businesses run in cycles. I mean, every state, many communities have had something similar. Just it might have been years ago, and they've turned it around, or they've been able to diversify their businesses. So, North Carolina used to have a lot of furniture creation. Providence, Rhode Island had a whole jewelry district that all moved out of the country. If you think of most cities and towns, they probably had something like this, and we're just in different parts of the cycle. A lot of military bases a few years ago were closing up, and that really affected the entire community around it.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Um, I always told my students, especially since they were military, they know about it. But it's like when a military institution is shutting down, it gets on something on like the BRAC list, and the BRAC list is like we're shutting these down, and I forget the time frames, like 5 or 10 years from now. And so when it's on that list, you have a 5 year head start on knowing, hey, this is going to happen. So when you're investing in a town and there's a military base there or institution or something, look and see if it's on that list. If it's not on that list, you're good for at least that time frame. They're not just going to shut it down and then the next day it's like um, tumbleweeds blowing through there. So it takes a lot to shut down a government facility.
Yeah. So another thing on when you're picking markets, especially like submarkets, path of progress is something that you got to think about a lot. DFW is amazing. It's like it's almost the size of Rhode Island in some ways, and there's different neighborhoods that have definitely expanded out of nowhere and had growth. I'm thinking of a few communities I know, like one of my deals where the market shifted for the worse. So the neighborhood has gone down in class or quality, and that's
Yeah.
definitely affected the rent and pricing.
Yeah. One resource to use for one for just like job growth would be city-data.com. I'm gonna try and put the resources that I use. I only right now use free ones. We'll probably touch on a few pay subscription ones, but most of these are gonna be free. City-data.com has a lot of information on job growth. If you want to get the major employers of the market you're looking at, you can go to the Chamber of Commerce's website for that market or that town or city or whatever, and they generally have who the major employers are. And they're typically going to be like your healthcare, hospitals, and things like that. Then they also have the school district is usually one of the bigger ones, followed by like if they have the military base, like we talked about, or if you're like near Washington or Virginia, you might have large government um, as one of your major employers. So city-data.com and the Chamber of Commerce website, whatever market you're investing in. Also, you talked about the path of progress. That can also be found in the city-data.com. And so that, and then they have actually a really good map typically where you can click on it and you can see like where the path is actually going through that town. Um, and we've all been in towns like, hey, this is a happening place. Downtown is killer back in the 30s, but then the path of progress moved it over to where the mall is. But now it's moving up to where like all the little um the strip mall or the little outlets or whatever are. And so you can sort of see how things are going. You can see where the expansion is happening, especially if you're getting a new facility like Amazon hub or something. You can see the things all building up over in that area. So, I mean, the path of progress is really good. And depending on the size of the town, if there's units, multifamily apartments over there by the path of progress, then that would be really good. If you're in a small town like where I am, um, everything is like 10, 15 minutes away. It doesn't really matter. But if you're like in DFW where you have an hour commute every morning, then you definitely want to invest probably within a path of the progress. So, um, another thing that we look for is crime. Crime can be found at citydata.com again, city-data, but there's also a resource called spotcrime.com,
Yep.
and that's pretty handy because that Like you pull up a map and you can start seeing where the crime reports have happened in your area for like however long. I think you can set it. It's like within the last 12 months, 5 years, or whatever. I don't remember exactly, but that's pretty handy when you can see where the crime actually happens. Um, you can see it if it actually happened on your property. Um, that would be a big thing. You have anything on crime?
I tend to avoid high crime locations. So we had a deal that we just passed on. We're doing 1031 exchange, and the property was about a half an hour, no, maybe 45 minutes from where I live. And street by street can make a big difference. So we look it up. It's like, wow, it's a little older of a property, but this number actually works. What's the problem? Well, the property crime rating for the street was an F.
Yeah,
So, and an F is a bad thing, you know.
yeah,
So we ended up passing. I didn't want another job.
yeah. And you can also get online and you can see where all the registered people are. I'm just going to call them that just because I know YouTube and all the other platforms get funny when you call them what they're actually called. And so when you have to register for the crime you committed, they're usually on, or they are on a website you can look at. So, um, one big thing is what kind of town, state, city you invest in is if it's landlord friendly or not, or if it's tenant friendly. Um, you want to give some ideas of what tenant versus landlord friendly are, Frank? And I'm
Yeah, I
sure you've
mean, most
invested
of
in
my
both.
friends are not investing in New York State right now, even though it's about 3.5 hours from our house. Most of my friends are not investing in California right now. Um, and by the way, don't forget, I'm in Rhode Island, so we know places that are not as landlord friendly as others. Uh, Landlord friendly states is there's the Carolinas, there's Texas, there's other places. Idaho is a very landlord friendly state. I remember doing an eviction during COVID on Zoom and stuff like that.
So Texas is very landlord friendly. We've been evicting throughout COVID, um, even throughout the moratorium. There are ways to do it. Last I heard, places in California, LA, still has a moratorium on evictions. So that means they can't get anything done. If they even try, it's usually like 60 to 90 days out before you can even maybe even like get a court case or something,
No, it's
court
before you
date.
can even serve notice.
But I don't know. I know during COVID we were evicting within like 12 days was the longest, but now it's dropped that down to 3 days for a typical eviction. Now, granted, I don't like evicting, um, but you do get the resident who plays the game, and so they play the game where they push all the buttons they can and they drag it out as long as they can. Now, granted, it's harder in Texas versus California or New York, but it's like in those states, they know what the resident knows what they're doing, and they're just living there rent free, and there's nothing they can do to get kicked out. And so, I mean, it's a horrible thing, but in the landlord friendly states, the residents know they can't play those games like that, and so there's really no option for them to. And so, actually, I think it makes for better residents because they know they can't play the game, so they don't even try, and they actually do normal people things than play games. Does
There
that
was
make
a
sense?
news, yeah, definitely, definitely. There was a news article recently about a Massachusetts professional tenant who for 20 years was swindling about a dozen landlords, over $1 million, no, almost $1 million was swindled.
Yeah.
Craziness.
So it's like, yeah, we don't like evicting, but we when people don't pay, actually, when people don't pay, we try to work with them. It's whenever they start doing illegal activities, they get evicted. They start breaking their lease, doing things that are against like what we agree to. Maybe they have five people there living there when only one person is on the lease, or maybe they have a dog. that they didn't say they had and they're not paying for that dog, or maybe they do have a dog and the dog attacked somebody or attacked another dog. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can break the lease, and you just want to get those people out so that your other residents can live safely and comfortably. So, um, let's see what else is there.
I mean, one of the little things, especially if you're picking a new market, you might sometimes people pick a market where they want to live in the future, or just the whole concept of climate. So some people like to live in an area that has all four seasons. Other people would rather be in a place that doesn't ever have hot weather, you know?
Yeah. Um, so one thing also to consider, but I don't necessarily like put too much stock in it, is like the median household income. I was like, if it's sufficient enough to pay the rent that you need them to pay, then I'm happy. But I don't look to increase my rents to match that income threshold. You know what I mean? Um,
Definitely.
I have numbers that I want to work with, and then I make sure that the median household income can afford it. Um, Typically, you want someone to bring in 3 times as much rent and income every month at a minimum. That way, they're not strapped and they're just like, all right, I don't know if I can buy gas this week or pay for rent this month or whatever. So, let's see. New infrastructure. What brings people in? That sort of went with up above with population growth, but new infrastructure on that. What are your takes on that?
I mean, I'm just thinking of like Charleston, South Carolina. One of the things they did is they moved their port. Their port used to be at the end of Charleston Harbor in downtown, the city of Charleston. And it was a pain in the butt to do much business in downtown Charleston and to move things from the port. What they did is they built this brand new highway overpass bridge, and it was high, and they brought the port inland closer to train connections and in an area that people were using a lot less. So that did two things. One, it brought brand new economics to even further inland. And number two, it gave downtown by the water a chance to redevelop right along the waterfront as well. And it was like a double bonus, and it's done very well for Charleston.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then
And
the last thing I was thinking about for markets is some people really care about appreciation, and some people really care about cash flow. So I mean, I like cash flow. I like both, by the way. So if you see places like Phoenix a couple years ago, you had to buy at a 3 cap or a 4 cap in order to buy in and own stuff. But at the same point, it had 25% year-over-year rent growth for a few years.
yeah,
So the appreciation was so high that even though the cash flow wasn't there, it was worth it to hold on to the properties, break even, maybe even lose money for a couple of years, and then the property would be worth a lot more in the future. Versus places like Ohio that never, most of the cities have not really had a massive growth and appreciation. The rents might be a little lower, but the units are profitable overall.
yeah, and that goes back to what I originally said: is people invest for different reasons. It's
Absolutely.
like some people invest for depreciation, some people invest to maintain capital and grow it. Some people invest for cash flow so that they can live and not have to have a W-2. So I mean, there's everybody invests for different reasons, and there's all sorts of different markets for all those reasons. Um, but one big thing that we've talked about before, um, invest in a market, is you want to have boots on the ground. You want somewhere to be close to it that you're either partnering with or you yourself are going to be able to go to it. Um, and and boots on the ground can also override some other issues. In Wichita Falls, where we invest, we haven't had population growth since like 1960. 1960 to today, we have had the same population in Wichita Falls, right over 100,000 people. That's what, 60 something, 65 years since the 1960 census. Before that, population doubled from like 50 to 60 or whatever. But if I didn't live here, I wouldn't be investing here. But but I do live here and I know the market really well. I know who the property managers are. I know who owns all the other units. I have other units here, so I am somewhat my own comp. So I mean, you need the boots on the ground partner or yourself to be able to invest. I think that's probably one of the most critical things, because you can have the best idea, best market and everything, but if you're not there to oversee how everything is being carried out, then it doesn't really matter.
When you're investing near home, you know what you're going to get.
Yep. And when you're investing in home and an emergency happens, you can get over to the emergency pretty quickly if
Heck
needed.
yeah.
So, is there anything else for market?
I think that's pretty good. I don't
I
know.
think we did a pretty good overview. There's definitely, you can go into the nuances of everything more. You can start going into some like rules of thumb and some guidelines to move forward with on some of those items. Um, but if you want a free resource, a market family analysis or market analysis template, I have one on my website, ironcladunderwriting.com/resources. I think to definitely be in the show notes and any links in the comments or anything or the description. So you can definitely check that out. And I have, you can go and it's an Excel sheet where you can go in and it has the links to the websites. You can fill out the data. You can do comparisons for multiple markets and over the years. So you can see what the trends are. It's definitely worth checking out, and it's always being refined more and more. But you have anything else for markets, Frank?
Nope.
I don't think I do either. So with that, we'll catch you next time. This is Jason Williams with Ironclad Underwriting, and we'll see you later. Bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, rate, and share the show. And don't forget to connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or check us out at our website at ironcladunderwriting.com for more insights and updates. If you have a question, a deal you're analyzing, or a topic you want us to tackle, shoot us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep your assumptions grounded, your models sharp, and your underwriting ironclad.